Okay, rise for the pledge.
The flag, United States, to the republic.
Good evening. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the June, is that right, June 22nd meeting?
Yes.
Are there any additions or corrections? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Brian?
Okay, thank you. So I'll try to speak clearly. Obviously, the mask has got to be there. So if you don't understand something, or if I don't say something that you understand, then please stop me and I'll try to go back. So the first item on our agenda is to request the elimination of some accounting funds. And the first one is we call it mostly by numbers here. So it's 5226. If you have your budget book, you'll find this account in your budget book, and it was started in 1989. There's some ordinances that refer to that natural gas rotary fund. It's sections 53.06 to 53.08. If you're looking at the city council ordinances on the web page, but those three sections created the natural gas rotary fund. And they created this thing that we used to call the Bowling Green Municipal Gas Consortium. And in that, we would take some smaller gas accounts, put them into a pile, and we could essentially buy gas, aggregate those purchases to get a better price because there was more gas purchases as a whole versus individual. And so for many years, that did give us some cost savings. And the Rotary Fund was established to pay that invoice, and then the different divisions and the responsible parties for those particular gas accounts would pay into that gas Rotary Fund and keep the account whole. So in 2018, we looked at the pricing we were getting. It didn't offer as good of summer pricing. We paid a much higher rate in the summertime than what we would typically pay. And so we started looking at the numbers, and in 2018, it just didn't make sense to continue that pricing because the cost savings were not there anymore. And so we went to a more typical gas account service that we would get for a building. Actually, all the rest of the buildings that were not part of the GTS program had their own individual gas accounts, and those gas bills were paid through accounts payable like every other invoice that was paid previously. So we moved those gas accounts out of the GTS structure and into their own separate gas account. And as a result, each division is now paying those invoices directly, just like they would from any other vendor. And so there's really no need to continue the natural gas rotary fund. And we had included in the 2020 budget to eliminate this fund. And you see that the transfer that we're proposing from Fund 5226, the $27,200 from the gas rotary fund to the 5221, 69450, which is a water revenue fund. And also we proposed to City Council that we eliminate those sections of the ordinances that don't apply anymore or don't make any sense. You know, if you read that today, it just wouldn't even make any sense to have it as part of our ordinances anymore. So to try to clean that up, our recommendation would be to have City Council eliminate those ordinances as well. The other funds, if you don't have any questions on those, I'll move to the next fund as well. So the other two funds we were hoping to eliminate were 5336, which is the gasoline rotary fund, and 5338, the underground storage tank fund. And these funds go back to a time when the city had underground fuel and gasoline and diesel storage tanks at the wastewater plant. We would we had our own fuel pumps there many years ago. We would buy gasoline and diesel in bulk, have it delivered, and every city vehicle went out there and bought gas, and we had our own card system and tracking system, and it was very cumbersome, but that's what we had. So back in 2012, we started using Rite Express, which is a credit card system, and you can go to any commercial gas station in town or anywhere, and you can they track all your purchases automatically based off of your driver, your ID number, and the mileage and the vehicle number. And so all the billing now goes directly to those divisions that are responsible for those gasoline purchases. It is very nice, much easier system for us to administer. And the last underground storage tank was removed in 2019, and that was a diesel tank that served the diesel backup generators that were out there at the wastewater plant. But those diesel generators were removed, and so there's no need to have the tank there anymore. So when the last generator was pulled out, we pulled out the underground storage tank, and we kept the money in this fund really just to kind of cover anything that may come up with the tank removal. But fortunately for us, that the tanks were removed as part of the AMP project when they removed the diesel generators. We were able to get them to remove the diesel tank as well. And so these funds now are not needed for any recovery or rehabilitation of the area. Everything came out clean. We got a buster report for the tank removal. That's all been completed. So these two funds in particular really, again, serve no purpose. And so we would propose the transfer from the 5336 and the 5338 fund to a 5331 account, which is a sewer revenue fund. I did have a typo in my totals. The transfer to should not be 74,000. It should be 75,000. So sorry for that. There is still one other fund, and you may see it in future years in your budget book and say, well, I thought we eliminated that fund. There's currently two underground storage tanks funds. One is an underground storage tank, and one is an underground storage tank guarantee fund. We call that one 5339. And if you go back into the history, the 5339 fund was set up to in partnership and cooperation with the airport. They have an underground storage tank there as well, and so the state code allows for some collaboration with political subdivisions. And so the city back at that time thought it would be a good idea to partner with the airport and try to lower some of their costs. And so the 5339 fund was set up to provide some coverage, state requirements of coverage for their underground storage tank. So that fund, the 5339, the guarantee fund, as far as I can tell, cannot be eliminated at this time. We are going to try to talk to the airport staff and see if they have other coverage that this is required under, or that requires this to begin with. So if they maybe didn't know this account existed and they did their own thing, who knows, maybe a decade or so ago, and they come back and say, well, this isn't needed anymore. I think we'd come back to you in the future and say, let's eliminate this fund and get rid of it for good. But for now, for what I can tell you is we cannot eliminate the 5339 fund.
Does money go into that fund, or is it just what's there has just been sitting there?
It's the state requires, I think the deductible for any kind of a spill or any kind of an accident that might occur. I think there's $11,000 deductible, and they want to see that money sitting in an account to cover any kind of an insurance claim that might come up. So money never goes in and money never transfers out unless we close the fund like we're doing now. So that the guarantee fund, I believe, has the same dollar amount, that has $11,303.73 in it. I think they're identical. And my guess is that over time those accounts probably collected interest of some sort, and that's how you got to this odd number. But the deductible is $11,000, and that's what it needs to be there. And it's always a zero revenue and a zero expense in your budget book. I expect it will still continue to be that way until we can, officially get rid of the fund. But so that's what I can offer on that one.
Quick question on
Yes,
the
sir.
natural gas side. What prompted, I guess, the review in 2018, or is that an ongoing review process? I mean, from 89 to 2018, you know, it was sitting there building. At some
Yeah.
point, it flipped over to where it didn't make economic sense. Is this kind of just where the market is now that we don't anticipate it going back and needing it in any way, shape, or form, or would it be like a reevaluate creating a new one
So-
at that point?
Yeah, good question. So once you eliminate funds out of this consortium or this GTS type of account system, you cannot go back. So we're pretty much that ship has sailed.
Okay.
So we can't. They won't let you go back and aggregate or compile gas billings into. But what sparked it really was as we got looking at. We have a natural gas aggregation program that the city offers to natural gas customers, and we don't. There's no revenue really for the city in this. It's just it's a benefit to natural gas customers, and so we do tend to watch gas prices and see how they fluctuate over time. And with fracking going on and gas prices being lower, we looked at what are we paying in our other accounts, and really we had some accounts that were paying the user fee or the usage fee to gas vendors that we don't even know how we got signed up with them. Just had been that way for years, and somebody set up the account and we never went back and looked at it again. So we started looking at all the accounts, and we got everybody. I believe all the accounts were transferred over to our natural gas aggregation pricing that our own residents of Bowling Green pay, which is a fixed rate. The last one we did was set for a 2-year term. We could have chosen, I guess, to go on the Columbia Gas Standard Choice Plan, which would be a variable rate, and it would fluctuate over time. But we felt the fixed rate, if we're trying to sell that or trying to promote that to our own residents, that does offer some price stability. And so that's why we chose the aggregation price that was fixed for that 2-year term. But the GTS pricing initially, it did, and for many years, it did provide lower costs. And what you'd end up seeing is you would see it a more a typical bill would be, you'd use a lot more gas in the wintertime for heating, and then in the summertime your cost would go down and your bill would go down. Well, we would tend to see lower prices in the wintertime, but the summer prices would be higher. So there was a balancing act of, well, are you paying more in the summer, but is your overall cost less? And for many years, the answer was yes, that's true. And so it did provide a financial benefit to be part of that consortium and keep it going. I can't tell you what year it was that change happened, but I can tell you in 2018 and since then, I'm sure we've seen lower gas prices for those accounts as a result of that. But if the prices go up again, it may be possible that the consortium would have offered some savings there. But the way gas prices are now, and the future outlook of the price of natural gas is not looking like it's going to go up, anytime soon. And I think in this way too, we know we're paying what we're getting. Whereas in the other program, you were paying us inflated summer costs, and like, well, why are we paying a high summer price when our usage is way down? And so that's how we made the decision to move out of the GTS program and just go to a standard. Plus, quite honestly, for our staff, there was a lot of time spent on the billing side and trying to figure out, okay, this line of a 15-page bill, goes to Parks and Rec, and some goes to Police and Fire, and some goes to maybe Public Works, and so the money transfer internally. It's kind of like the same way with the gasoline, with the fuel pumps we had. We utility staff were the ones that were trying to administer that and track usage and make sure people had the right PIN codes. And I was like, what are we doing? We're supposed to be treating water and providing electricity service, not tracking fuel expenses. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we approve Resolution 08-2020-01, eliminating unnecessary funds 5226, 5336, 533.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Approved.
Okay, thank you. Our next item for your consideration is a request for performing some asphalt repairs. Over the past few years, we've gotten a backlog of street cuts or driveway cuts that were either concrete or asphalt. And we put in the budget for this year $100,000, $50,000 in water, $50,000 in sewer to catch up on those old street cuts. And we had planned to do a good number of them this year, roughly half, maybe a little more, and then also budget in 2021 for the balance of those. And the majority of the cuts that we have to repairs that we have to make are in wards 2 and 3 at this time. The repairs we would do in wards 1 and 4 would be in 2021. We went out for quotes for concrete work, and the lowest quote we got back was for $22,800 from Helms and Sons. And I did issue a purchase order for Helms and Sons to do that work this year for the concrete portion. We went out for quotes for asphalt, and the lowest quote we got back was $70,500 and some change. Normally, purchases that are over $50,000 require board approval, as well as city council approval by an ordinance. And usually what happens is we ask you to request to advertise for bids and enter into a contract, and then you would approve that. City council would approve an ordinance, and then we would go out and advertise in the public for sealed bids to be opened at a certain time, and we'd have a contract book and a specification book. And normally for that kind of thing, you're looking at a larger, all-encompassing project like we do at our wastewater plant, or if it's a paving job, you're going to repave an entire street type of thing. In this case, we weren't sure where the bids were going to come in at. So it is over $50,000. We did just go out and ask some contractors that are in the paving business locally to offer us pricing on our list that we had for this year, and it came back more than $50,000. And so we have two options. What I'm asking for today is for the board to approve entering into a contract or an agreement with Morlock Paving for the full amount, the $70,500, which is in our budget, without advertising for bids. And that would allow us to complete the work in this calendar year. The other option would be is if you're not comfortable with that, since we didn't follow the standard process and we didn't advertise for bids, we just made phone calls to contractors. We could issue a PO to them for less than $50,000. And then that would delay about a third of the asphalt repairs for a future year. Their pricing may change because of the quantity change. So that typically when you're doing less work, their prices may go up a little bit. But just to give you some sense of what we're talking about, size-wise, there's about 120 sites in those two wards that we're wanting to get repaired. The total is around 1,500 square yards. And so each repair area is about 10 feet by 11 feet on average. Some are larger, some are smaller, but that's the general scope of that. So you can imagine trying to put a contract book together for 120 of these, little sprinkles all over town. It's going to be a little difficult to get a book put together and then to get pricing from somebody in a window here. So my request would be to again enter into a contract with Morlock Paving for the full amount. But if the board feels that's not the way they want to go, we can do it a different way. The next second bid we had was from Helms and Sons again, the concrete company. That was for $88,000. So this was at $70,000. That's all I have for that one. Sorry, the resolution number didn't get pushed down to the next page, so it's on the bottom of your first page. Sorry about that.
So what's the advertisement period?
The advertisement period that we would do if we followed the standard process would be 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
A lot of times when we call vendors or contractors for quotes, we'll give them a window as well, and we'll say, you know, we need to get back to us by a certain time. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I will say too, it's hard for a lot of times it's hard to find contractors that are interested in doing these small quantities of jobs. You know, they'd rather come in and pave Main Street, or like we're going to do in a few weeks, South Maple Street, where they can pave the whole thing and get a lot of quantity in one spot, one mobilization. The hard part with this, again, is because they're all kind of spread around town, there's going to be a lot of moving of equipment from one site to the next. You can imagine it won't take you long to fix up a 10-foot by 11-foot piece of asphalt, but you still have to have the same kind of equipment at every site. And so to move it from one point and do that over 100 times, I mean, there's cost there that they have to recover, and it is what it is.
And these repairs were for work that was completed over the summer.
Well, so this has been, these are cuts that have been made. Some of these could be a couple years old, and we've put cold patch back, or, you know, something else to get it by in the meantime. I mean, these could be in somebody's driveway. It could be on the city street. The concrete portion could be sidewalk, could be driveway, could be curb. There's a mixture of things there that we've broken, and that, you know, we just need to go back and fix now. For years, we tried to do some of the stuff in-house, and, you know, we get busy doing other water and sewer repairs, but all of these are a result of us cutting and excavating and digging up for a water main or a service line, a sewer lateral, manhole, those kind of things that are tied to our water and sewer infrastructure. So, and we tried to make this a priority in our budget, and I think the dollar figure we put in the budget was reflective of that, the $100,000. And again, we'll see a more money budgeted next year to complete the work. But once we get past 2021, assuming the board approves the whole amount here, and we do the next year, we do the next phase, I think going forward, we'll have a much easier management of the street cuts that we have. The numbers will be substantially smaller. We won't be seeing these kind of numbers again. We don't typically do 120 cuts in a year, so this probably won't happen again. But
So did the asphalt contractors, did they all bid the same documents for the same quantities?
Yeah, we gave them,
agreed to the same quantities and the specification of it.
Yeah, we have a listing of where the street cuts are located, the approximate size of those cuts, the thickness of the asphalt, whether it was 3 inches, 4 inches, or 6 inches of asphalt that we wanted to put back. They all bid. You know, when you go to the asphalt manufacturer, you pretty much can't get anything but ODOT specified asphalt. So they're all bidding. Was it 448? Is this ODOT spec number that they follow? There's an intermediate layer. There's a surface layer. All of those things are, you know, part of that what we asked for. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
proposed to approve resolution 08202002, authorizing the utilities director to enter into a contract with Morlock Paving without advertising.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Same sign.
Okay, thank you. The third item is a request to transfer funds. So we have a city employee who is going to retire this year, and we did not have enough money in the retirement payout line in the budget this year to cover that retirement. So we just need to transfer $13,579 from the refunds line to the retirement payout line, and then we can pay out the person, or as we're required to do.
What is the refunds? What's that item?
Refund. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Jackie's not here. If you don't look too. I don't exactly know.
Is that the, like, sick leave and vacation
Yes, sir.
that they did not use?
Correct. Yeah. But that's the payout. That's the retirement payout line. The refunds line, that's an expense line that we have. Again, when I asked Jackie to do this stuff, that's why she's so great, because she finds the stuff for me. That's where she obviously looked at the budget where we are today. She said, what are our expenses today? What do we expect to have for the rest of the year? We don't expect that there will be any expenses in the refunds line. It's in the same 5111 category. If we had another fund that was in the 71,000 category, we could do it internally, but we didn't have funds to do that. So we had to go to the 94,000 line where she found some funds that were not expected to be expensed yet. They were included in the budget, and transfers. If we didn't have the money in any line item in the budget, we'd be asking for a supplemental appropriation, and it would be similar but different. But I'm sorry, I can't answer your question exactly. Apologize.
Can you have this individual continue to work? Just don't have to keep working. So you have them.
Unfortunately, when they decide to retire, that's out of our hands.
All right.
So.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
propose to approve resolution 08202003, authorizing the transfer of funds for expenses during the 2020 fiscal year.
Second.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Approved.
Okay, thank you. Next item is to a request to accept a 15-foot utility easement from a property owner that's on Cobblestone Drive. We asked the resident for a 15-foot utility easement, just to basically to maintain the rear yard electric services out there now. Gave you a copy of the easement documents. This is our standard easement language that we have any residents or any property owner sign whenever we're trying to get a utility easement. And there is a description and a diagram showing the parcel that it sits on and where that 15 feet is located. Nothing earth-shattering about this one, but
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Motion to approve resolution 08202004, authorizing the utilities director to accept a utility easement.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Approved.
okay, thank you. And the last item is something that we had talked about at our June 22nd meeting, and this is involving customer-sided generation. So this would be like for rooftop solar, maybe a small residential wind turbine, that type of thing. At that time, we gave you I think we gave you an example from the city of Hamilton. It was structured similarly, but had a little more complexity to it. And so we looked at it and we've been talking with Solvin Associates. They've been helping us work through this policy and this process. And so we've tried to move some of the language around so that it's a little more streamlined and a little more, to me, it made a little more sense to put it in similar categories. And we've also tried to streamline the application and the approval process. And so what you have is similar to what you saw from the city of Hamilton, but hopefully a little more clear and concise and a little bit better for us to use. So some of the highlights that I would just call out is we talked about last time as well, was trying to limit the size of the generator that someone could install to more closely match what their actual consumption and usage would be. This would try to prevent somebody from putting in an oversized generating unit and then trying to sell more energy back to the city and in some way try to make a profit on that. We did talk about the metering, whether it would be net metering or bidirectional. So our current setup is, and we do have some customers that have on-site generation today, and we do a bidirectional metering with those customers. We would propose to continue that so that we measure the flow of electricity in both directions. So when they're consuming from us, we would sell to them at the retail rate. when they're pushing energy back to the grid, we would measure that and then give them a credit back on their bill for some dollar amount. We did develop a new electric rate rider, which was not in your previous board packet from June 22nd. That rider would be included in our electric rate schedule. And that electric rate schedule is the document that has all the electric rates for every type of customer that we have. This would be a rider, just an addition to that document. I think the rider is really the last 3 pages of your board packet. But in that, it sets what the value of that, what dollar per kilowatt hour, what the value of that energy is. And we set it, I think it's around 5.5 cents per kilowatt hour. And we looked at the value of the energy, the value of any peak shaving. I think before I talked to you about, we could have a dollar value for the energy portion, the kilowatt hour portion. We could establish a dollar value for the peak shaving amount that we might get if that generator was online from the time of a coincident peak that we have to pay for. There's value to that. That was going to getting a little bit complicated with us trying to administer that, and also the rate consultant trying to put that into how do you structure that rate. And so we kind of lumped it all into one number, more or less. We also had talked about a separate rider for solar and a separate rider for wind, because there is less peak value for wind generation. I think the wind price was 4.7 cents. My suggestion would be that we just use the solar rate as the rate that we pay, because the majority of customers, if they're going to do anything today, is going to be some kind of a rooftop solar or some kind of a solar installation. We've only got one wind turbine customer, and to try to have a separate rate for one customer, while maybe it's fair and equitable financially, at some point somebody has to handle the paperwork side of this and understand, well, that's different because of this reason. And it just didn't make a lot of sense to me. So my suggestion would be just use the solar rate as the going rate. It does, we still included the industry standards for inspections and IEEE and all the other industry standards that were included in the last example. The rider does have an additional charge to those customers. We call it a facility charge. And so this would be a monthly fee that the customer would pay, because as a result of them using their own generation, we will collect less revenue. Now, we still have costs that we have to pay for wires and poles and transformers and being available in case their generator doesn't work. And so there's a lot of expenses that we have to incur regardless if they have a generation on site or not. And our current rate structure with our monthly customer charge, so for residential, maybe it's around, I think, $12 or $13 a month right now. That does not fully recover our costs, because some of our costs are built into our kilowatt hour charge. Well, if they don't have the kilowatt hour charge or that component on their bill anymore, then we're not covering all of our costs to provide service to that customer. So there is an additional facility charge that is included in the rider. I will tell you that the structure that you see in there today is based on a dollar per kW or per kilowatt of how much that generator can put out, how much of that facility can generate. And that is also will probably be different the next time we come back to you. That's just what our consultant proposed. And I didn't have anything better to share with you at the time, so I left it in there. But that type of a rate structure, we would have to have a separate utility rate or a separate rate for every customer, because let's say, Megan, you put up a 5 kW generator on your house, and Trevor, you put up a 6 kW generator. Well, those two costs are going to be different. So now I've got to have a rate for you, Megan, and I have a rate for you, Trevor. I have to keep that straight in our billing system. And so I think what we're going to try to do is come up with a a monthly flat charge that kind of levels out what we would expect the customer to use or to have on their property. And streamline it the way that we did the just having the renewable energy rider, not having a wind and a solar. We'll maybe have several numbers in there for what that cost would be, but try to simplify it so that the customers can easily understand what they're being charged, and staff who is handling the billing side of things can easily understand where that number comes from and why that number is what it is. So that is one thing that may change in the rider that you have in front of you today. We did discuss or cover in here, how does the city recover costs if we have to upgrade our systems or change out some lines or wires or transformers because of the customer's installation? Who pays for that? We did handle disconnection, liability, and insurance. Again, those were in your past example. And to simplify the approval process, we boiled it down to 3 documents, and they're also included in your packet. The first is an interconnection application, and so that's a 2-page document that the customer will fill out, likely with the help of their solar installer or whoever they're purchasing their system from. They would submit that documentation to us showing that they've met all the standards and it's going to be an inverter-based system. Once we've reviewed all that and approved it, it looks like it's going to not have any impact on our system, we would sign off on that. The customer could also complete the interconnection agreement, which is, again, just a more formal document that says, I agree to the terms and conditions. That document's also in your packet. And the third would be, once they have the first 2 signed by us, then they can go ahead and install their system. And once it was inspected by Wood County Building Inspection, and our staff had gone out and inspected their installation, all the metering was put in place, the disconnect switch was put in place, then we would sign off on this approval to energize. And that's really the green light that they says they can go forward and start to generate power for their system and push back to us as well. And again, I mentioned we got some issues to work out on our billing side. We've got to talk with our billing software. Name of the company is New World, and so we've got a call into them to see how we can automate some of these processes, because right now it's all done manually, and we measure on an annual basis, and then we go through and annually we do a true up with the customer, and we give them a credit back for whatever we measured for what they pushed back to the grid. So my hope is we can get to an automated system where maybe each month the system itself will just track this information and give the credit back monthly versus having to do it manually on an annual basis. So, but the system does have limitations, and that may not be able to be worked out. Again, I'm not requesting any action by the board tonight, but I think we're getting pretty close with the document. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now, but I would expect in September, likely we'll come back and be looking for approval, and we'll have a more complete and an official rider as well as the interconnection standards, and then you'll have a complete document to review and consider at that time.
Couple questions. How many customers do you have right now?
Around 5, I think 4 or 5.
And then will this,
Well, I'm sorry. There's maybe actually 2 or 3 that are installed, and another 2 that we've just recently signed agreements with to install something.
so then will those agreements with those customers transition to this once we have this in place?
So right now we have an agreement with 1 customer, and the other ones we've kind of handled administratively, and we said we're going to treat you the same way as we treat the current customer who we have an agreement with. Nobody's come back to us and said, well, I want something in writing, so I don't really have anything in writing with those customers who have gone forward. We didn't give them any kind of a guarantee that that the process that we had was going to continue. We told them we were looking at revising the policy. We're starting to see more of this now. What we have now is basically it's a one-page document. It's worked very well for us over this time. Haven't had a lot of interest in this area, but I think we're seeing more of it now, and it's going to continue. And so I think it would help to have the framework and the rules laid out so that people going forward kind of know what to expect. So I can't speak for them, but I don't think anybody who's made a decision to put, solar or wind behind their meter has made the decision based on, I'm going to get so much money from Bowling Green to pay for this. And if they did, they really should have been trying to get from us some kind of an agreement or something in place that said, I've got a commitment from Bowling Green because financially I'm depending upon some kind of a payment from them or some kind of a credit on my bill to offset my utility costs. And nobody has done that with us yet. If there's some suggestion or recommendation that the board would want to have some kind of a grandfathering period where we would treat them differently than what goes forward, we can discuss that. My hesitation with that is that as soon as you start opening up a grandfathering clause, 10 years from now, I got 5 customers who are being treated differently. And
right.
Why is that? Nobody remembers that we were here today talking about this. And, so there's got to be a sunset or a window of time that this would fall under. And then everybody's going to go under this new policy.
Did you say that all of the existing ones or the ones that are upcoming here are already on the bi-directional metering?
Yes.
So they're already kind of similar in that process anyway.
Yeah. The difference would be, I would say, is the dollar value that we pay for the energy. So right now we use our average wholesale cost of power. This is lowering that amount to what our avoided cost would be.
Okay.
And so this would be, so if I would say go on the market and buy that energy, what's in your rider today in the board packet is closer to what the electric market would say that the value of that energy is worth.
Okay.
Kind of compare it to, if you look at some of the projects that we've bought into, these are, multi-million-dollar facilities, generating facilities that are designed to last 20 to 80 years, maybe even 100 years. And so the investment that you put into that kind of facility is very different than what you would put into a rooftop solar. The amount of capital required and the complexity of that installation is nowhere close to what we're buying from other assets. And so to me, there's a little bit of a discrepancy, or the dollar value we're going to pay based on our wholesale cost is too high compared to what the value is we're getting, really.
Okay.
It's a number that we had in the past, and we used that. It works if you have a couple or a handful of these, but the more you get, the more you're basically subsidizing those installations to go forward. And again, you're not really recovering your cost to providing that service or that option for those customers to put that facility behind their meter. So, and I would say too, the rider, that dollar value in the rider could and likely would change on an annual basis, because if you look at the electric markets, while they are low now, they may not be that low in the future. So if the electric market would move up and our avoided costs would be at a higher rate, I would say that rider would move up with that. I can't imagine electric prices are going to go any lower than what they are now. It was possible, I suppose, but I think that's fair to the customer, because we'd have to buy that energy from somebody. At least a portion of our power supply comes from the market, and if it's going to come from the market and they can provide that to us, then if that's what the market gets, then that's what we could pay to them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, if you have any questions between now and next meeting in September, let me know, and be happy to answer whatever I can. So that is what I have for you tonight.
Okay. Are there any, do you have anything on behalf of any of the superintendents? Obviously, they're not here.
I don't have anything from them. Everything's operating and working pretty normally. Obviously, we got South Maple Street pretty well tore up still. The water main work is mostly done. Some of the water service lines have to be completed yet to get the customers hooked up to the new line. We do have a contract to reline the sewer main. Initially, the sewer crew was in, they replaced all the laterals within the right of way that are our responsibility to replace or to maintain. So now we've got to reline the sewer main down Maple Street. And we sold a contract several weeks ago, to do that street and also the sewer that crosses at Conneaut Park. I think the company's name is Granite Inliner. So they'll come in and they'll start at one manhole. They'll pull in a new uncured sewer pipe. They'll use hot water to it's called cured in place pipe, and they'll heat that pipe up with some hot water, circulate that water around. We'll get a new pipe inside of the old pipe, essentially a new PVC pipe with no joints. They'll send a little robot machine in and cut out all the sewer taps that so all the customers can send the sewer again. There is a brief period of time where the customers their sewer laterals are plugged off while the pipe is going through that cure process. But it's a very short window that usually it can happen in less than a day. And we tell customers and residents in that area, like, they just don't use water if you don't have to use water. And it's worked out pretty well for us in the past. The waste plant, we do have the aeration and biosolids project is out for bid right now. We just had a pre-bid meeting on the 18th. I think that's going to be opening bids here at the beginning of September. What else? We just took farm lease bids today. Those numbers look pretty good. I think the farm numbers are pretty good compared to even from last 3 years ago. So we should see some good revenue numbers from that. Everything else seems to be running pretty normal. Getting ready for budgets. That's coming up soon. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mike.
No? Council report? New business, unfinished business, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pose same sign. We are adjourned.
Awesome. Thank you.